Hello, welcome everyone to the Movement Made Better podcast. Got Ray with us again this week. Let me throw a question out to you guys. Is the fitness industry out of touch with most of the population, or should I say unapproachable?
Yes, I think to a degree. If you're looking at like social media, then probably, yeah, a little bit. Because a lot of the stuff you see on social media is kind of extreme. A little bit more. The extreme side of fitness, like the guys who move really, really well, who do all these kind of extreme movements or extreme lifts, but not always the basics. Or if the basics are on social media, they don't get as much attention thing. So I think there's a little bit of a disconnect there to the average gym goer, I should say, the average Joe.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I think what happens is you start working in the fitness industry and then you're just surrounded by the same people all the time. And if those are all your friends and that's it, and you don't go outside of that, you get into this little echo chamber, right?
Yeah. So you think everyone's
like this. Everyone feels like this way about training. Oh, everyone wants to eat this way. But then you work with real people and they really don't give a shit.
No.
Right?
They want to get better.
Yeah.
They want to improve their lives. But it's like, okay, when you first start training, we have this. We could commit our entire life to this because maybe, you start out when you're, whatever it is, early 20s or something like that. You don't really have a ton of responsibility yet.
Yeah.
Right? And, you're training people that are older, older than you, like in their mid-30s, early 40s. They've got families, and you just have no concept of what their lives are like.
We're also out of touch because there's so much of the general population that we don't focus on trying to, I guess, convert in a way. Yeah. Right. So I think that's a big shortcoming too, is because from an intimidation, most people think training is a very intimidating thing. But I think just catering to the masses, general population, with just simple tasks of just being able to get up and down off the floor 10 times, right? Let's say just doing that 10 times, using hands or whatever you need to do, but almost to see, if you gave that task to like 100 people off the street, brought them into the gym and just gave them that task, I think you'd be really surprised at how many people would have a really tough time doing that. And even if they did it, they'd be out of breath.
Yeah.
Like it'd be a really exerting drill for them, right? With just something that the rest of us consider, well, how can you not do that normally?
Right. I think what happens too is that we've been training for so long. Our standards or our perception of what a standard should be have changed over time. And so when we first kind of get into it, it's the simple stuff like squat, bench, and deadlift and whatever the case may be. But like over time, standards may change, and even like our perception on things may eventually change. Like things that we find to be simple movements or simple tasks can be highly intimidating. Like you said, like that intimidation factor is really, really serious. Like I'm sure we've all had people that were talking to that are clients or were clients or were potential clients at one point that were intimidated of going into the gym because they didn't know what to do. They felt like there were eyes that were always on them, which is another thing that's another subject. But like there's just so much, I don't want to say shame, but almost kind of like to a degree fear of going into a gym or starting to work out because it's unknown to them.
Well, because people think, it's like you said, they think everybody in the gym is watching them. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. Yeah. Nobody gives a shit. They just don't. Typically, they don't give a shit. Because I think people forget that no matter what you look like, I don't give a shit if you're a chiseled Adonis. Every chiseled Adonis started out as a 90-pound weak-ass geek. Yeah. Period. Right? And people kind of forget that. Everybody started in the same boat. People aren't genetically coming out going, boosh! And they're like they have to work for it.
No, man.
Oh, you can't.
I think there's some people that
but you still have to work for it. Like, you still got got to work for it. You don't know it's there until you actually put effort into it, and also you're like, oh shit, this is pretty easy to me, right? Yeah, I have that superior genetics, but you still gotta. There's a lot of people that probably have superior genetics that never tapped into them.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Because there's just not. Working out just isn't something that interests them or whatever. So they just never get to it. So you kind of will think sometimes, wow, how many people do we walk by that really do have really good superior genetics? They just never gave a shit about it, right? How do we get out to these people that that we're missing out on, which is the vast majority of the general population.
I think one tactic is to give them a more realistic perspective, right? One thing is that people think you got to work out every day, all day. That's your life. You live, breathe, and whatever the case is. It's like, no, it's not really like that. If you're going to the gym 2 to 3 times a week for 45 minutes to an hour, that can be highly effective depending on what your goals are. What they need to put into it is based on what their goals are oriented around. And most people's goals is they want to feel good. They kind of want to look good. They just want to be healthier. They want to be able to go out and do stuff that the regular day-to-day tasks. That's all easily achievable going to the gym a few times a week. They don't need to be in a gym like bodybuilders that you see for 4 hours a day, doing cardio for 2 hours and coming in lifting for 2 hours. Like that's not everybody. That's a very small, super small,
tiny
subset of like the fitness population.
But
Not even
that's
just the
who we see,
population.
though. But that's who we see, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's so. With that perception becomes reality.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what I think most people look at and go, well, that's everybody in the fitness industry.
Right.
If a random person envisions a trainer in their head,
right?
That's who they see.
That's who they see.
And that's just not the reality. Not everybody trains. A large majority of trainers don't train that way.
Oh, hell no.
So it's just like, if we were to find a way to convey like, hey, like, look, this is going to take up 2 to 3 hours of your week, which that's a very small fraction. That's less than 3%, less than 3% of their week. So if you can dedicate this less than 3% of your week to doing some movement, like incorporating certain fitness, either if that's walking or some kind of resistance training, the results you'll get will be good if you just put in the effort into it.
Is our baseline perspective on what people should be able to do already higher than it needs to be? Because we have we look at the way we assess people, right? The way we assess their movements. Are we still setting those what we consider basic parameters? Is that even still too high for the average population?
I mean, I don't know. Across the fitness industry, there's no standard. There's no standard baseline movement.
But if you're taking like an if you're taking like an FMS, right? Like,
but FMS is in the weeds.
Yeah, true.
Like what we do is a very, very small portion of the fitness industry.
True.
So if we're thinking about the whole bodybuilding community, which is the majority of it, right? And that's what people are exposed to in magazines.
Yes.
Yeah.
This. So within that, like, what is the movement standard?
Yeah.
There is no movement
standard. There
standard.
is no movement standard. Yeah.
There's nothing. So it doesn't exist.
Right. I think that's kind of hard to put a measurement, if you will, on. Because it's like everybody's different, anatomical structures are different, movement capacities are different. If you incorporate injuries, if you incorporate gender, if you incorporate so many other aspects and different variables, it kind of changes. I guess, but the way that I will personally look at it is, are you able to do simple movements like squatting down to pick something up without pain? Can you do that without getting hurt? Or does it hurt when you do that? If it does, then yeah, your movement capacity is probably lower than optimal, because doing movements shouldn't cause pain necessarily. It should be something you can do without having to think about it or be super hesitant on making a certain kind of move.
Yeah.
I guess what happens then is the average person probably thinks that most people are going to be very judgmental on what they can do, how they can do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's the number one thing that we as fitness professionals have to make sure we avoid or do our best to avoid, because that's not our job, is not to be judge, jury, and executioner, so to speak. Like it's the ability to look at the way somebody does something and go, you know what, we'll work on improving that.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, Jesus, you really suck at that shit. Fuck, that's a basic thing. How can you not do this? Right?
Yeah.
But I think I have a feeling that most people think that's what they're expecting.
Yes.
Right? And like just alluded to earlier, when people go into a box gym, they think everybody's staring at them. And they got to realize, no, everybody's into their own shit.
Yeah.
Now, if you start doing some crazy shit like we see on some of the videos that people take, then yes, people are going to be looking at you because because they're going to be looking at you going, well, why the fuck are you whipping that shit back and forth? You know, why are you taking the cable row machine, running backwards and then flying forward, that type of shit that you see all over the place. If you do that, then yes, eyeballs are going to be on you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But other than that, nobody gives a shit.
If you're doing basic stuff, It's not going to get attention. And I think one of the problems is too, is it's a societal thing too, where people are so focused on what everybody else is doing instead of going, okay, I need to pull back and focus on me and focus on what I'm doing and not care about what other people are doing. And so like I've had clients before that are like, yeah, I don't really like working out on my own. And I'm like, well, what's stopping you? What is it that's hindering your ability to work out on your own? They're like, well, I don't like being watched. Like I feel like the eyes are on me. And I'm like, look, the fact of the matter is, they don't matter.
Yeah.
The gym is actually probably one of the few places that everybody can go to, and it doesn't matter your walk of life, but the goals are always the same.
Yeah.
So if somebody is staring at you, they got a problem with it, then whatever. That's their business. That shouldn't bother you. Mm-hmm. But that judging, that fearful side of like being watched really stops a lot of people. And that's really hard to overcome.
Well, I've had the experience where someone was referred to me and then I talked to him and he's like, well, before I come in, I want to get in shape first.
Well, yeah, right.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's what I'm here for, is to help you, guide you so that it's a little bit more efficient for you.
Yes.
And then you actually do it.
The reason why that pops up, we hear that a lot, right? Mm-hmm. But I think once at the base of it, the reason why that pops up, they don't want to be judged, right? They want, and so it's like, well, yeah, but you're missing the point of what we do.
Yeah.
Right? If getting fit, quote unquote fit, wasn't a high priority before on your own, why would all of a sudden I expect you to do all this shit on your own now before you come see me?
Right.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right?
It's contradictory.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it too is people will say, well, I don't work out on my own because I don't know what to do. Right? So that's the other thing we often hear, right? Oh, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to program this and that. Mm-hmm. Because we know as much as we try to teach our clients certain things, we have to, generally speaking, realize that it goes in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't get retained, right? Because even after working with clients for years, you're like, okay, you should have enough experience, understanding that when you're on vacation, you can go, okay, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this on these days. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? Absolutely. But how often do you still have clients who you worked with for years that they just don't do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? They want the program.
Yeah.
They want it there for
right? Yes.
Even if they know how. Yeah, a lot of them know how, for sure.
So yeah, I mean that's one of the big things is how do we make ourselves more relatable to the average person, and how do we make ourselves less intimidating, so to speak, and approachable? Because if you don't have that relatability and down to earth, like that aspect of being able, hey man, that person, I can just walk up and start asking them questions, him or her, and I feel like it's going to be a comfortable situation. In a perfect world, we can reach everybody.
Yeah,
so to speak.
I think, and this is kind of like a personal experience kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But like, I'll be out and about in public, and I'll go to the store or something, and every once in a while, I get somebody that's like, "Hey, man, you work out?" Right. I'm like, "Yeah, sometimes."
Yeah,
and and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a coach. This is my profession. This is what I do." Okay, I'm interested in working out, but to me, the way I look at it is, do you as an individual, do you look approachable, right? Do you look friendly enough for somebody to go, hey, what's up, man? Or how's it going? That's one aspect. But also, like, I think people don't really understand that the context of where we got to and how long it took. Like when somebody's like, oh man, how do I get like strong like you? I'm like, 13 years of lifting? Like, I don't really know what else to tell you. It took me 13 years. Like, this is a long time. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, like, I'm not going to give you an answer that's not true.
Yeah.
It just took me a very long time to do. Like, and it's not, yes, it's partly genetics, but it's time and dedication to what my goals were at that point in time. And those goals kept changing and progressing over time. So I think getting people to understand, like, hey, this is a long-term investment, but also we all start from somewhere. Like, if you started from sports and then transitioned, or if you were that nerdy kid who never worked out and all of a sudden was like, I want to put on some muscle, and you then went to the gym, there's always a starting point for everybody, but nobody starts at the top.
And that could be also part of the issue too, is because when you're realistic with somebody, you say, look, this is going to be a journey It's going to take you a long time. Maybe that in and of itself is a reason why a lot of the general public doesn't do what we do.
Oh, yeah.
Because they realize this is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
This isn't something short term.
Right.
This isn't something I'm just going to do for 3 months and then I'm going to stop and everything's going to keep going and carrying on. You're like, no, you have to stick with this.
Yeah.
Like if you want it to stay, you have to continue to implement the things that we know are scientifically backed.
Mm-hmm.
They work. They're effective. Maybe therein lies really at the root of it. Why we can't reach a lot of people though too.
Well, the other thing I think too is, I mean, you think about growing up, right? As kids, you have people that are just naturally attracted to playing sports, doing activities, and then you have other people that aren't, and that just kind of guides you into adulthood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same people that were really active as kids and kept playing that are into some sort of fitness. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be training like we do, but they stay active their whole lives. And then you have that other set of people typically don't. And then those are the people we're trying to reach, right? I don't think we need to try to get them into the gym. I think it's first. I think the gym is the last thing they need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, they should do it eventually, some sort of strength training, some sort of cardiovascular training, but it first it needs to be a buy-in to just activity in general. Number one.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then once they have that, then you have a deeper motivation of, okay, oh, you know what? I do like this activity. I can get better at this activity if I had stronger legs.
Yeah.
Okay, now how do I get stronger legs? Oh, I see that. That's cool. Okay, maybe I'll go work with someone or a buddy that works out. I mean, for me personally, I like training more if I'm training for something.
Right.
I don't like to just train to train. I do it because I understand it's good for my health.
Yeah.
But my motivation level is way lower. I'll just do it. I'm like, hey, I'm going to just stay in some sort of shape.
Yeah.
But if I have golf to train for, rock climbing to train for, an event to train for, or something like that, then it's a way higher priority on my list. Otherwise, I'll feel pretty good. I'm pretty healthy.
Yeah.
And I'm strong enough, mobile enough. So what's that extra push to do it?
Yeah.
Because I don't care about being like, the strongest, and I don't care about being the most flexible or the fastest, if I'm not training for anything.
Right.
So I just don't think people have that extra drive. So there's just not it's not a high priority.
Yeah. I mean, that totally makes sense. It's just like someone training for a 5K or a 10K. Like, where do I start? Start walking.
Yeah.
Start walking 10 to 15 minutes a day. Like, that's just that. That's just enough. But for a lot of people, that's challenging. Like, if even for my clients are like, all right, well, what can I do to get, extra active? 10 minutes of walking.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it like every day, once a day. Just start there. And for a lot of people, that's extremely challenging. It's because they're not having something to work towards. But you're right. Most people are more likely to do something if there's something to work towards. Oh, I want to lose 15 pounds. Oh, I want to do this event. Oh, I want to get better at this.
Yeah.
Then a person's typically all in. But for the average person that's just like, I kind of want to take care of my health. To be honest, like that's not enough. That's not enough for those people. Like, because at the end of the day, it's just for them, it interrupts what they do.
Yeah.
And they don't like that. And that's fair.
Because who are the people that we see? The people that start losing their abilities.
Yeah.
In movement, right?
That's
a big portion of our clientele.
Yes.
So that's more motivation than anything you'll ever do.
Absolutely.
Right there. When you're in pain, you can't move anymore. But if you can do everything in daily life, like what's the point?
Right.
What's the point for you to work extra hard to get stronger? So I think it's part of it's, educating them in a way that's like not being condescending.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough part because I know me personally, I think one of my pet peeves is people that are able-bodied that just don't give a shit. It really is. And it's always been a pet peeve of mine. Probably will continue to be. I try to keep a lid on it as best as I can. But when I see somebody that's able-bodied and just doesn't give a shit about it, and you're looking at somebody else that's not, and you're like, do you understand what that person would do to have your capabilities?
Yes.
I mean, drives me nuts sometimes. I'm like, Jesus Christ, look at that person and look at you. Now, stop taking your shit for granted. Get out there and do something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, just even increasing your activity level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I think most people think they have to go to a gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the gym is wherever you train. Right. Was it Swolenormous or whatever from Instagram? Right. What does he say? Always go to the gym. Right.
Yeah.
But he's always like, the gym is where you train.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a building. It could be your garage. It could be your living room. It could be outside.
Yeah.
But his point is just wherever you train, just get there and do it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think increasing that understanding of just be physically a little bit more active into whatever it is you like to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's swimming, something like that.
Swimming's a great exercise.
Right?
Yeah.
Pretty low intimidation factor, unless you don't know how to swim.
Yeah,
unless you don't know how to swim. But then you can get coached in that, right? You can get coached in that. You can overcome that.
Mm-hmm.
People that have a fear of swimming, you can hire a coach and spend some time in the water, and you're going to get better at it.
Yeah.
Right? And so eventually speaking, that's going to go away. And that's a pretty low pressure activity, right?
Well, I think a huge problem is look at schools and where PE is taken out of schools.
Mm-hmm.
So if PE is taken out of school at a really early age, and you have all these subjects, these are super important. But physical education, we can get rid of that. That's not a big deal.
Yeah,
so from an early age now, kids are learning it's not a subject, so why is it a big deal?
They're saying if the school system and adults don't think it's an important thing, then why should I?
Why should I?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a priority.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you're not physically capable, it's going to affect your mental health, and it's just going to affect what you can do as you grow up.
Yeah.
So if anything, parents should be more actively involved with the school board, saying, look, instead of trying to teach our kids to prepare them for a test that they have, an exit exam that they eventually going to have to take, instead of being so worried about that, which unfortunately school systems are worried about more because of funding more than anything else, right? They're screwing the kids over because they're saying, okay, let's cut out the PE. Let's take away that. Even though we know scientifically all the benefits that come from being a little bit more physically active than sedentary.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as a young kid. I couldn't imagine not being active. Like it's a weird thought. It's honestly it's a really weird thought process.
It is.
Because
it is.
I'm sure when we were younger, go out, play basketball, play football, all around, or ride your bike. It doesn't matter. But we were always doing something active.
Yes.
But nowadays, that's really, I don't want to say dwindled. It's actually just kind of hit a sharp drop. Because it's not often that I hear about parents having their kids be super active, or even relatively active, I should say. And that's a little alarming, because now it's just like, well, why aren't you pushing your kid to do like a little bit of something? Not a lot, but just a little bit.
The term play date never existed.
Yeah.
Like, dude, if you had told me at the age of 10, my parents would have been like, we got you a play date. I would have been a play what? Excuse me? Who am I dating?
Yeah.
Like, no, like, dude, I'm outside. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
But it kind of, helicopter parenting has kind of kicked in. Everybody thinks their kid's going to get abducted. Statistically speaking, that's not even close to being realistic. But it's that whole fear that you just don't let your kids go outside anymore and just be kids anymore, right? But if your kid is out there playing with 5 other kids, you're pretty safe.
Yeah.
Like, let's just face it, right? I mean, kids know how to look out for each other, right? Even at the age of 7, 8, like, they know when shit's not right.
Right.
I mean, they have a sense of this. So in many ways, our parents all of a sudden started to create a generation of a younger generation that just doesn't see the value and even understand the value of physical activity.
Totally, because you get a really non-active parent, and then the kid, that's their example. They don't have to say anything, but that's their example.
Yeah.
Right, but if you see your parents and they're just physically active, whether they're training or not, but they're just constantly doing something, playing with them too. I mean, because kids naturally, they just want to move.
Yeah.
They can't sit still. It's a totally normal thing. And so the parents just have to let them go. Let them do it.
Yeah.
Because who did you get? I mean, I looked at my dad as, like, I saw him lifting weights as a kid, right? So to me, I was like, oh, well, he lifts weights. I want to lift weights.
Yeah.
Right? I played sports my whole life, but when I got to, about that age of 11, 12, I was like, well, I want to start lifting weights. Like, that's what he does. So I want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's where, and I think you guys probably had the same type of concept is you got that from watching your parents be active.
Yeah, my older brother, he was into martial arts, started lifting weights, but he's 12 years older than me, and I mean, I probably shouldn't have been watching these movies at 5, 6 years old. Like, Terminator, and Predator,
Dude, that's good, bro.
Bloodsport.
It was just preparing you for life,
so
dude.
you see this, and you're like, oh, you can do that?
Yeah.
Like, the body can do that?
Yeah.
You see Bruce Lee movies, you're like, all right, that's it right there. And then, growing up with all my cousins around the same age as me, we just played all the time.
Yeah.
But your older brother being that significantly older is pretty much like a parent figure to you, right?
Pretty much.
That's a massive age discrepancy, right?
Yeah.
So same thing for me and my siblings. Like there's over a 10-year gap between me and my youngest sibling.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for him to see me doing what I do, it was probably more from a father figure standpoint than a brother standpoint type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you emulate people around you. You see what they do, and you go, okay, well, if they're doing that, then I like doing that too, or that's something I would like to try to do. Yeah.
That's also like when I went to the gym with my uncle when I was 14, and this dude was like
freakishly strong,
freak, man. I was just like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And so like seeing that was actually my first experience, like one of my first experiences where I was just like, holy shit, that's actually pretty cool. Yeah. And I'm like, and I think the thing that set it aside for me was that like he was the only one in the entire like gym doing what he was doing. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, shit, I'm related to this guy. I want to be like this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So like, so seeing that, but also like I had cousins. I'm the run of the litter. Like I'm like, you know what I mean? So like when I was growing up, man, my God, me and my cousin used to get into fights. Used to get my ass whooped most of the times because I was small.
Yeah, yeah.
But like seeing them play sports and different things like that, like that is what encouraged me a little bit more to go, okay, I need to start getting into sports. I need to start doing something because there was multiple factors, but like that was one of the things that kind of got me there. Otherwise, I didn't really have that much of an outlet.
Yeah, because you saw your uncle going to the gym and going into an area that like he was at the heavy end of the dumbbell rack where other people weren't. He was using the dumbbells and having to wipe the dust off before he picked them up because he was the last person to probably pick those things up anyways, right? So yeah, when you as a kid when you see that, you're at least for me, I can relate to that. You're like, oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my relative, right? Mm-hmm. Like so that's where you want to be, and everybody else is at the other end of the dumbbell rack lifting the light ones, right?
Yeah.
So you found it to be extremely inspiring.
Yes.
Right. So that gave you motivation to want to be like him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think your environment greatly dictates ultimately more of who you become and what you become as you get older.
Because if my family was like not active, be a little different.
Yeah.
I'd be hella different.
Yeah. It'd be vastly different. Right? Yeah. Vastly different.
If my family never played sports, if I never seen my family like actually lift, I wouldn't appreciate fitness in the same capacity that I do currently. Mm-hmm. And I honestly never would have got into it because that's not my environment. That wouldn't be my environment.
Yeah, for me, I love to see people take the step and take the initiative to improve themselves. And on whatever level that is, at least let's take that initiative. And because ultimately, the only person that's going to really give a shit about your health is you.
Yes.
Period. Mm-hmm. Nobody else, right? Because as coaches, I think, at least for me, like I've learned that I can't care more than my client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't. Mm-hmm. Because if I do, that puts me in a bad place with that client. Because then I get irritated. Because I'm like, why don't you give a shit as much as I do? Mm-hmm. But ultimately, it's them. Yeah. Right. So if they're in here training, so that's great. Obviously, they're making that step, but even on a 1 to 10 scale, it's still sitting at that 5. Well, okay, I've got to be okay with knowing that this specific client, they're at a 5 on the priority list. Like they're here, they're training, but it's still a 5.
Yeah.
Like it's not that 9. It's not that 10.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Where some clients are going to be at that 9 and 10.
Yeah.
They're,
So if we go back to the question of like, how do we relate to the general public, and I guess we have to look at it as the people that aren't active.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
So I think to reach them, like for us trainers, you have to be friendly, and you have to be the one to initiate the conversation if it's in person, and it can't be, you can't try to convince anyone to train.
No,
that's what I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it just needs to be a conversation, and like if fitness comes up or health comes up, you just kind of tell them these are the benefits of being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. And then, if you're doing social media posts, then it's got to be something that's not intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
But see, the thing with that is it's got to be catchy enough, right?
That's the hard part.
So, well, I think you're trying to grow, and that's the tough part because you've got that social media versus, let's be honest, reality.
Yeah.
Social media and reality are different, right? So if you're trying to reach more people with your quote unquote message, then you kind of have to deliver that in a certain way to be effective on social media, but it's not realistic to how you would really deliver it in real life.
Totally.
And that's the shitty part of what we have to, that's the balancing act we have to do, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's like you talked about with just talking to somebody that's not physically active. For me, it's like, man, let's just go for a walk.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Because in my head, I'm going, this person just doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So, and that's the least intimidating thing, at least as far as I know, that I could possibly do for this person.
Yes.
Right? Let's just go for a walk let's go walk a mile. Right? Because, and other people, a lot of people listening to this are going to maybe be like, what's walking a mile going to do? But depending on who you're talking about, that mile could be a massive feat for that person.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that the other aspect of that too, or other aspect of that equation is any activity is good activity.
Yeah.
Right? Because like people are like, oh, I kind of work out a little bit. I'm not really all that active. I go hiking. I'm like, you're active.
It's great.
Like you're doing something, right? Like, oh, I walk around a little bit. That's being active. That's
being active.
That's okay.
Yes.
Like it doesn't need to be you going to lift stuff. Like that's not everybody's version of activity. And if it's not something that you enjoy to some degree, you probably shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Find other means. Like the simple stuff or the simple types of activity can make the hugest difference to the person who doesn't go to the gym, who doesn't work out. Because that can be that 10-minute walk or that 15-minute walk can be the difference of either keeping them relatively healthy and they can do stuff on a day-to-day, or that can actually make their health deteriorate a lot faster. So it kind of comes out of balance.
Yeah, because even if you can commit 10 minutes a day to something, there's a cumulative effect over week, months, years.
Yes.
And even if it's 10 minutes a day for the first month, that's going to condition you to go 15 minutes a day the second month, 17 minutes a day the third month. And then all of a sudden, now I'm able to be active for a whole hour. But it's gradual.
Yeah.
And it's not, you're not forced upon this, hey, you got to train 3 times a week for an hour at this super high intensity. Because I think it's too intimidating for people.
The another thing we should aim to avoid is if you get somebody that's just novice and just getting into it, and the last thing you want to do is smash the shit out of this person so that they're like, oh, I couldn't sit for 4 days. I think that's the one thing that I think most trainers get carried away with. That new client, okay, oh yeah, we're gonna beat you down.
Yeah.
Right? No, you got to understand, give the client just enough, the minimum effective dosage, so where the person wakes up the next day and they're like, oh, I did something. Like I feel like I'm a little sore, but I'm not debilitated.
Exactly.
Right? like I know it was effective. What I did was effective, right? I'm feeling the consequences of that, right? I'm feeling the effects of it. But not to the point where the person is going to be like, well, why am I going to go back? And it's kind of a joke. Like we do joke about it, right?
Yeah.
And we've all been there. Let's be honest. There's not one of us that hasn't been at that point, right? Where you couldn't extend your elbows because you did so many bicep curls that I couldn't extend my elbows, right?
Yeah.
Like we've all done it. We've all done stupid shit like that. But that's the shit that I think a lot of trainers do to clients the first little bit, and then you lose the client because the person's like, well, I don't want to feel like this all the time. And if this is what training feels like all the time, why the f- do I do this?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like you have to know how to modulate the intensity, but also like it's okay to not have them work super hard or hard to their level all the time. Like that's okay. Like when I look at like how my clients or looking at the rate of perceived exertion of my clients, I like to keep people mostly like around a 7. That's pretty good for most people.
Yeah,
it's enough to get them that minimum effective dose, but it also keeps them active and it also keeps them from getting so sore. Like hardly ever do I actually like destroy somebody in a workout, and that's only because they ask.
Yeah.
I'm like, how are you feeling today? I want to do something hella hard. Cool. I got you. We can do that. If you're feeling that good.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to have every person do that as soon as they come in, because that's not my goal. My goal is to make sure that they get to their goals and also that they can do it in a safe manner.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if I'm basically taking away their day-to-day joy, I'm not doing a good job. I'm not doing a good job there. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, because they're going to see you every week for years, probably.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just go harder and harder and harder every single workout. That's that breaking point.
Yeah.
Well, plus there's not only that, but there's some tasks that you give to clients, and you think this is something they should. You're like, okay, you've got the movement qualities, you got the strength qualities, but also you give them 1 or 2 little variations on a movement or a drill. And then all of a sudden, the next time you see them, they're like, I was so sore from that.
Yeah.
But you got to take that feedback.
Yes.
You've got to take that feedback and go, okay, this is what we changed. This is how your body reacted to this. Okay, let's note that. Let's make sure, okay, boom, boom, boom. This is something that was a little different. This is how their body responded. So we need to take that into account the next time we go into it. They shouldn't get that same response because now the body's experienced this the second time it goes in, but it's also reassuring that client that, okay, well, the next time we do that, your body's going to respond a lot better, right?
Yeah.
It'll have that ability to adapt. The stimulus has already been exerted. It's felt that stimulus and knows how to deal with it. So you got to kind of reassure them that you're not going to get that same soreness, that same, oh my God, I couldn't move type thing, right? So it's giving them that feedback to say, okay, it'll be much better the second time around, right? Yeah, maybe I wasn't expecting you to get as overexerted as you did, based off of what I felt you could do, but now we know, okay, right? And these are all the little things that I think we have to take into consideration, as coaches.
Yeah.
So. Well, I hope that helps people out as far as, having some kind of way of thinking of perspectives on how to reach people in the general population that maybe you've had a hard time trying to get into as far as clientele, and being able to relate to those types of clients. So any last thoughts on that?
No, not from my end.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
be friendly.
Yeah, that's it. I think a smile and being friendly it starts. A long way to go. My clients are like, "That he's never done this." But until next episode, be good to each other. Listening to our podcast, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and whatever platform you're on, either Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, please, if you could leave a review, we'd appreciate that. If you have any questions that we can answer for you, be sure to leave those in the comments also.
If you're looking for more information on our education, our products, please go to www.stickmobility.com.
And also hit that subscribe button to that YouTube channel, and don't forget our live Instagram classes 3 times a week. If you want to join in, grab your sticks and hit that 45-minute class.